Well, thank you so much. What a lovely introduction, far too kind, I'm sure. Okay, so thank you for inviting me here today. Such a beautiful setting, and I think it's just very apt that we're here this week after the announcements between the US and the UK on tech development, because I really feel that the work that you're doing is going to help to spearhead the progress that needs to happen for economic growth right across the United Kingdom in support of the government's objectives. We're looking for increased employment, opportunities in highly skilled jobs in tech, not just in London, but right across the United Kingdom, and it's a very exciting time. So the work that you're doing in terms of legal frameworks, engaging, making sure that there is compliance and that we maintain the extremely high standards that are always acknowledged in terms of UK and London cities is just extremely vital, I think, to the progress that we're going to make. So yes, thank you for the introduction. I was awarded the honorary doctorate just a couple of weeks ago, and my husband said to me, because it was an honorary doctorate in laws, "What exactly do you know about law?" And I thought for a moment and said, well, when you're in Parliament, you're creating the law. So I've been a lawmaker for 10 years, so I was glad to be able to give him a retort, because sometimes he does challenge me, and I found him more challenging than many of the other MPs from other parties, I have to say. So when we started in 2021, I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of the journey we've had in Parliament up until 2024 when I stepped down, and then what's happened since and how we want to work collectively with industry, with yourselves, with the regulators to make sure the UK maintains its leadership position moving forward. When we started, there had been no debates in the House of Commons on cryptocurrency. Now, I'm not from a fintech background, I'm from a health background. Actually, when I started in the Parliament, I was the first clinical psychologist to be elected to the House of Commons. Given the understanding I have of how Parliament operates since then, I do think that most parliaments should have a psychologist. And I'm sure that's why my constituents decided I should take part in the parliamentary process. So arriving in Parliament, I thought, I'll do health. And when I went along at first, they said, what's your experience and what would you like to do? And I said, well, obviously I've worked in health for 20 years, so I'll be working in health. And a few weeks later, they came back and said, well, actually, you're going to be in foreign affairs. I said, foreign affairs, but, I've worked in health. And I've only actually really been to Europe and Florida, so what do I know about foreign affairs? But in Parliament, you're stretched. You have to learn new things. You have to go into sectors that perhaps are a bit out with your comfort zone, and that can actually be the making of your journey in the Parliament. So despite all of my initial protestations about being in sectors that I didn't fully understand at the time, I threw myself into foreign affairs for the first period there. Did a lot of work on disability inclusion in the Parliament as well, starting the Speaker's Scheme, and then had the opportunity to engage with the crypto group. And the reason it was important was because one of my constituents had lost a lot of money in what we now know is called a rug pull scam. So the industry hadn't been regulated. Ordinary people were losing their savings, and much more had to be done. He said to me, can you find out who in the Parliament is doing this work? And of course I said very naively, yes, I will. I'll go off and find this out for you. Came back a week later and said, actually, no one's doing the work. So as things happen, he said, well, why don't you do it? Take it forward. So again, I was in another sector that I didn't really have experience of, but unbeknown to me at the time, not many other MPs in Parliament either had this experience. So we were all on a new journey of learning. We decided to, when we set up the APPG, and it's now re-established, so if you want to engage with it, please do get in touch with Crypto UK, who are providing the Secretariat, get involved. There's also blockchain APPG and digital money APPG as well, so you can be quite heavily involved in the work that's going on in Parliament. But when we set it up, there hadn't been one before. It was very new. People were very sceptical. We were all on an education journey. And I remember bringing, I suppose you would call them the tech bros, into Parliament for a round table. And all of the jargon that came with them, sitting in the committee rooms listening to the world of crypto and why they felt it was going to, and digital assets, and why they felt that financial sector was going to become extremely digitalized and things were going to change. And all of the jargon, DeFi, CeFi, blockchain, Bitcoin, and we sat there for about 45 minutes with the sector, the MPs, and the Lords, and all of the jargon. And then someone mentioned fiat, and one of the Lords said, I understand that. Fiat's a car, isn't it? And I thought, yes, we have a big education journey together to take forward. And so at that point, I felt I wasn't the only one in the room who was learning. Get involved with the APPGs is my message from the first slide. We definitely need your input. I've put Children's Parliament up there on the slide because this was the second very poignant meeting that we had throughout the first year, which led me to realise how important this sector was going to become. The Children's Parliament came to speak to us. I don't know if people are familiar with the Children's Parliament, but they're really from age 7 right the way up to round about age 16. They represent the different constituencies of the UK, and they come to speak to the MPs and the Lords periodically in Parliament to tell us the importance of issues that they're grappling with, might be to do with social media or mental health. Anyway, this time they came to speak about tech. The children were in the room. All of the Lords were in the room that were interested in the group, and the MPs were in the room. And all of these children very engaged in talking about their future. And I remember because the Roblox man was there, and I spend a lot of money on Roblox, so I particularly want to speak to him. But he asked an important question. He said, who here understands Web3 or has heard of Web3? All of the children's hands up into the air. Hardly any MPs had their hands in the air. Very, very few members of the House of Lords had their hands in the air. And in that moment, I thought, we have a digital generation coming through. They understand technology. It's a natural part of their lives. They're actually very digitally native in a sense. Unlike me, I've had to learn a lot as I've gone along. They're very digitally native, and it makes sense to them. So of course, finance, like everything else, art, sport, culture, is becoming digitalized. It's a natural progression in a sense. And they spoke really eloquently for the whole of the session about why this sector is important to them, why it's part of their lives, but also interestingly, and I felt very cleverly in an educated way, they said, we need you to put the borders around it, the parameters, to make it safe. And they weren't just talking about financial technology, they were talking about tech in general as well. So they wanted us to be there to facilitate their journey, to create the jobs of the future, as they described them, and to make sure that there were parameters around this work to keep it safe for them. So then we realized that this work was not just important in terms of our economy, which of course it is, but it was also very important for the next generation. And therefore, and I have children too, so I suppose years ago we would have said, be a doctor, be a lawyer. My mother never said be an MP, of course. This was never the recommendation. But nowadays, many mothers like mine are probably saying, get into tech, get into AI, because that's where some of the jobs of the future lie. And it's important to the next generation, we harness this opportunity for them, give them the skills, and in the Parliament, make sure we have the correct regulatory framework. So we did all of the work for 3 years, from 2021 to 2024, when there had been no debates in Parliament on cryptocurrency. We had regular education sessions for the MPs and the Lords. We engaged with industry, we engaged with regulators. We also looked jurisdictionally, because as has been mentioned, this is a global industry. It's not just one that sits in the heart of the UK. So it's very important to me that legislators, policymakers understand what's happening elsewhere in other jurisdictions, and that perhaps we can have some shared standards and harmony in terms of those standards over time. So with that in mind, when I stepped down from the Parliament, I thought, we need to continue this work, but we need to actually engage the MPs with global legislators. So I set up the Global Forum, which you can see on the screen, and you can certainly engage with it online if you like, or contact myself. And we've had a number of meetings now, bringing MPs worldwide together to discuss digital technology, to think about shared standards and interoperability. We had a meeting this year in the House of Lords. We've had a meeting in the European Parliament. We had a meeting in the Spanish Senate in Madrid, which was wonderful. It was the first time I had been to Madrid. And the message from the parliamentarians is very consistent. They don't know enough, and they want to know more. So this work in education has to continue. In October, we're taking members of the House of Lords to Capitol Hill to meet with counterparts in Washington, and the work will continue. And from the work that I've been doing in the UK Parliament, and then subsequently, I was also asked to set up the UK-US Crypto Alliance, which will help to solidify and build upon some of the announcements that have been made in the past few weeks, and to create that ongoing dialogue between legislators in the UK and the US to pave the way for tremendous progress in our digital assets journey for the future. We've also been asked to have events in other parliaments in the future. So as well as going to Capitol Hill, we'll be going to Paris and Berlin for next year, Davos, and we've also been asked to present in Monaco. Of course, I'm Scottish, you can probably tell from my accent. So I also attended to speak about my work at a small event linked with the Scottish Parliament a few weeks ago. And we're very, very keen, because we had Welsh representatives there too, that this is a whole UK journey and that we do it together. So the learnings we've had are, really, throw yourself into this sector. We're all learning together. No one has all of the answers. You're going to become part of the journey. It's an important journey, not just for the economy, which is, of course is pivotal and one of the key aspects that I'm trying to champion in terms of support for the government, but it's also very important for those children who came to speak to us in the Parliament, because for them, this is more than something that happens in buildings very esteemed like this in the heart of the City of London. This is about their opportunities for the future. And together we need to work to create those parameters, to give them those opportunities for jobs of the future, the ones that they came and asked us to form when they came to speak to us in the UK Parliament. So thank you for having me come to speak to you today to talk about the parliamentary journey. I hope it's inspired you to get involved in your own sector. You'll have many esteemed panels today to look in detail about the types of work you can become involved in. And please do reach out to me as well if you want to be involved in any of the aspects of the delegations to the US or any of the other parliamentary delegations we're working on to educate and continue the journey with MPs. Because of course, we're in a democracy. As soon as I had educated all of the MPs from the last Parliament, hundreds more arrived. So the work is ongoing, and it probably will never end. So there went my retirement options when I left the Parliament, and I found myself to be busier than ever. But to be honest, it's a huge privilege and honour, and I'm particularly honoured to be here with you today to share some insights and, more importantly, to learn from you. Thank you very much.